Hello and welcome to today's edition of Route 664, The Road to Human Kindness. I'm your host, Les Winston, and I am the national spokesperson for socialsecharity.org, which is a program and a project of the Endow American Network Foundation. And my guest this morning is my host. Community Newspapers is a wonderful facility here in South Miami where we're doing this taping on a weekly basis. And our host is Mike Miller. Mike, good to have you with us this morning.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. And I've been listening to you for several months, once a week. And
Yes.
one thing for sure, you have the kind of voice that really commands people to listen. All right.
Thank you.
And then the next thing is the subject matter. All right. And you are a very calm person. And I frequently hear you speak about being kind to one another.
Well, human kindness, the road to human kindness, Route 664 is the road to human kindness. And I've been asked by a lot of people, including my mother-in-law, who lives in London recently, said to me, I don't understand what you're doing. So we have to explain Route 664 a lot of times. And we hope that that'll change, that people get used to those numbers. 664 is a section of the tax code which allows individuals to benefit themselves, benefit their families, and benefit their communities. And in doing that, they will eventually create endowment to allow human kindness to flourish. In other words, the thing that stops us from being able to take care of each other the way we would like to is we're always worried about money, we're worried about our relationships, we're worried about a lot of things. And in the country today, we're really worried about politics. And there's a change going on. We're now entering into the era of human kindness, and we're doing that through the economic era. The world has evolved from tribalism through religiosity, and what I mean by that is the way things were controlled. A tribe would control everything in the days before religion took over. Religion took over when the books were written, and the great books. They came about because they needed scribes to keep track of the beer, but it ended up with religiosity being the controlling element. People had to know how to live. What they would do is go to the religious leader in their community, and they would get their direction. And that changed actually when Gutenberg invented movable type, and changed the world forever because he allowed people to have their own Bibles, their own agreements. They could read their own books, and so we entered into what we call the political period. And the political period was based on who had the most gold, who controlled the most people, who controlled the most land. And that period actually lasted until the mid-1950s, when the United States embarked on trying to build the worst weapon of mass destruction, which was the hydrogen bomb. In order to do that, they needed to invent the microchip in order to do the calculations to be able to build the bomb. So the microchip was a change even greater than Gutenberg's movable type. And then the second thing that happened was Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, and we entered into what I consider to be the economic period. And we're in that economic period now, but we're having difficulty shedding the political period. So what we're trying to do is use the economic period to go to human kindness. And the way to do that is using a section of the tax code that Congress, in their infinite wisdom 50 years ago, more than 50 years ago, gave us, which nobody is using. So we would like you to use that section of the tax code and other sections that permit you to do things for yourself, for your family, and for the community. And when I'm talking about human kindness, it's your own human kindness as well. It's important for you to feel comfortable about what you're doing, have the confidence over money. So it's a long answer to a short question.
So right.
Well, have you wind me up? You can't wind me up.
Wow, folks. In the last 13 months at this point, we've seen so much human kindness, all right, where the people, neighbors started taking more care of each other, this is more than a hurricane that just affected part of a particular area. This thing, besides being global for each of us, it reached every space that we could be in. And when we looked at the food lines, all right, and the people that were fortunate enough to be able to pass out food to the people, and that certainly is a fulfilling thing to be able to do. Yes. And we see more and more and more of that. And we've seen the government say, we're going to take care of the people as far as vaccination that are 65 and older, and because those are people that needed a little extra help, right? And when we've seen this happen, it brings tears to my eyes to say, my goodness, it's really there, right? Because
isn't this event one of the largest events that's ever happened in the
Yes.
world? When you consider that, it is world changing. And so,
there's no question that it has changed how we look at each other, right? And about how the world interacts with each other. Before, it was Ebola was over there and the mosquito diseases were over there. We really weren't affected by it, or the tornado was up in Fort Lauderdale or was down in Homestead. It really didn't impact me. This brought people together so much more, and so many people died with this, and I'm ever so careful when I talk to people about it. I say the sun is starting to shine again, except for you, because you lost your folks. But when we see the empathy that is going on as far as how to get people back together, and the kids that are out there, we've had plenty of psychologists on about the impact that this is going to have for years.
Well, the impact needs to be directed, and will be directed by actually a rebound from what we've been experiencing. And I think that that's a big factor in this. Sometimes you have to go, it's one of the things we discussed in a course that I'm taking is storytelling. And in a way, this is a story of this country. But Kurt Vonnegut has a very short piece about storytelling, which is very, very interesting and something that you should look at, but I can describe it to you pretty easily. He takes a piece of paper and he writes on the left-hand margin, he writes, there's a line that goes straight up and down. At the top of the line is ecstasy, and at the bottom of the line is misery. And then in the middle, there's a line called the BE line. The BE line is the beginning and the end. And a story, we all have a lot of stories, but the story of the country right now is we were in a pretty good position before everything happened, and we were above the line of the beginning and end, and we were closer to ecstasy than we were to misery. And something happened in the interim that created that dip to force us to go below into misery. But over time, we're going to start edging back up and go back over that line, and we're going to get closer to ecstasy, the good things. But you have thank you, Wanda. So you have to go through these things to understand what value do you have when things are great. And so sometimes we don't appreciate that very much. And so human kindness will come about as a result of that, but that needs to be funded. I think that's really important. Money and the funding drives everything. And so if there's a way to do this with proper funding, where it's not hurting people, where it's not, where when government comes in and says, we would like to fund something, and they're taking something from somebody to give it to somebody else, it's not by choice. When somebody says to me, if I ask a group of people, are you philanthropists? I got to have 30 people in the room, nobody raised their hand. But if I ask them, are you taxpayers? Yes. So I said, well, you're all philanthropists. You're just involuntary philanthropists. You don't have a choice of where your money's going. And you have that choice because the government gave it to us by giving us that section of the tax code, 664.
So, but somebody does, lots of people don't know about that because it's never been presented to them, and because it's never been an issue. We just go about our lives, and we might give to charity, which I know is different, all right? But most people, they're just giving without this real direction, right? And I think lots of us need that direction so we can start including that.
Yeah, the philanthropic planner, the professional philanthropic advisor, is a fairly new profession. And there are only 2,000 and some around the country who have actually received a degree that they can call themselves professional philanthropic advisors. We need more professional philanthropic advisors. And what makes a person a philanthropic advisor, a professional philanthropic advisor, is their knowledge of how to use that section of the tax code. So, we're not familiar with 664 yet, but one of the things that we're doing is trying to get everybody familiar with 664, just as what's a 401k? Why do you know the number?
Yep.
Do you know what that is? Do you know where the number comes from? Why do you call a retirement plan a 401k? Why don't you call it a retirement plan? but people call it a 401k because that's the section of the tax code that has the recipe that tells you how to create a tax-deductible retirement plan for your employees. So 664 is just another section of the tax code that the government gave us. And the bargain in there that most people don't realize is the government says that if you do something good for charity when you die, you'll get lower taxes while you're alive. If you ask 99% of the people out there, they don't even know that exists. So our objective is to get 664 well known. And that equates to social security. Get used to saying that. Social security. It's like 664 is much easier, Wanda, but social security sounds like Social Security because that's what it's like. You know, the thing about Social Security, if you have paid into Social Security, and you can take this as an example, you pay into Social Security your entire working life. A lot of money goes in. You're not married and you have no kids, and you reach your retirement age, and the next day you pass away. What does the government do with all of that money that you paid in? I can tell you that they give you $255 to take care of your body and get rid of it, but they don't give you anything else back. So it's not like in Social Security, people have accepted the fact that they put all this money into something and really nothing gets left behind. They get the income from it, it's true, but at the end of their life, it disappears. So what we're saying is the same thing basically happens, is that you're not leaving anything behind to the people that you want to spend it, but you're leaving it behind to the organizations that you want to spend it. So the difference is you put money into social charity all the years that you do it, and at the end of the day, when you pass away, there's actually something left that goes into the community, and that's an endowment that can be used to endow things.
So why is a 40-year-old, I'm just picking a number, I was at one time a long time ago, why would they be interested in what you're suggesting?
Well, successful 40-year-olds, people who are making an income and are paying taxes, and who have satisfied their own retirement plans that they've created, IRAs or a 401k, once those things are completed, and they still want to have some tax relief, they can use Section 664 to get that tax relief. They can also use it to create supplemental income. You know, if you ask a 40-year-old if they think they're going to get Social Security, you don't get a very positive answer. And they think that Social Security is going to disappear in 2032. They've heard that. They've been told that. And also what's interesting is nobody's talking about it. They're talking about everything else under the sun, but nothing about that or Medicare. But
you know, you bring up a really good point. Up until November, everybody was all involved with the national elections, wherever you were with that, and then some things happened in January, and things happened the last 13 months with COVID. But pretty soon, that conversation about COVID is going to be decreasing, you know, month by month.
It'll be less. So.
What?
We certainly hope so.
Yes. And at some point, what is going to be the narrative come September, October, November? What are we as a nation going to focus on, because we've been able to redirect it? So this
664, the missing piece.
PEACE. To fill our brains with something new and something positive. Are there like classes, seminars, things that people can find out about the other options that are also available?
Funny you should ask. Yes, actually, that's one of the things we're doing is we are going to start to educate the public. We're going to educate advisors. We want to make more professional philanthropic advisors so that more people know how to use this section of the tax code to their benefit, and how nonprofit organizations can also use this process for their benefit, because nonprofit organizations are always striving to find a way to build an endowment. And unfortunately, their current income needs get in the way. So what we're trying to do is find a way to help do both, provide current money for organizations to be able to function, as well as future money for endowment. If you can endow a hospital in every community so that the hospital was free to all of the citizens in that community, that would be a tremendous benefit. That would really be like Medicare for all. But it's not coming from the government. It would be coming from the community providing it. We have that example right now with the Danny Thomas Hospital.
And there's some universities whose endowments, their endowments are huge, and they could forever, ever, ever, from the proceeds, pay for the students?
Well, I think personally that this concept of, retiring student loans, some of these universities, for example, I mean, Harvard University, not to single them out, but they have a huge endowment. It's over $50 billion. They could certainly help the students. I think the universities have kind of a responsibility to make sure that the students that they graduate are able to pay off their loans by the fact that they got the education at the university. If they're not able to do that, then the university should pay for it. Frankly, they've gotten all the money, they've gotten the benefit from it.
So family members, 2 graduate degrees, undergraduate, et cetera. I think one of the walks out of school with $275,000 in debt.
Yeah.
My first house was $38,000.
Right.
So I look at $250,000. So then I talked to mortgage brokers. How do you factor that in of this debt, right? And we get these young people that have this huge mortgage on their heads, all right? And that is forever. That's their entire lives.
Yes, this is a kind of it's a real problem, because we're told that in order to get ahead in the world, you need to go to college. They made it very easy to borrow the money, and that's part of the problem. I think we need to have some changes in the way we view our young population, how they are being trained or how they're being taught, how they're being evaluated, how they get into their adult life. And I think one of the things that we're proposing is that, today, I don't think most people even know this, but an 18-year-old male in the United States must sign up for the Selective Service. And if they don't, they're subject to a $250,000 fine and 5 years in jail. I don't know how many people actually know that, and I don't know how many people are where they're actually enforcing that. But that theme needs to be expanded, and they're trying to expand it to now have women also who are age 18. And so we're kind of a maverick in a way, that we're proposing something that may make people feel a little bit uncomfortable. We think that 18-year-olds should serve their country, and that actually school that's provided by the government, so to speak, that's paid for by government, whether it's state or city, whatever, or even charter schools, however they're dealt with, it needs to be extended 2 more years. It needs to be extended to the first and second years of what I would consider junior college. And during that period of time, everybody should be forced to go through a ROTC type of program, a type of military style, for a short period of time, a 4-month period where they go through like a boot camp. What that does is and also where they go into service service to the country for 2 years for that period of time. It doesn't have to be military. It can be in the caregiving side. It can be in the environmental side. But that period of time, that 2 years, first of all, it creates independence in the young person. It also gives the young person an opportunity to evaluate what they like, what they don't like, what they're capable of, what they're not capable of. 18-year-olds today, if they're not going to college, they're lost. And if they're going to college, most of them don't even know what they want to do.
When I was about 17, my mother said, you're either going to finish high school, go in the Army, or Peace Corps. One of those 3 things. What are you going to do? I decided it better to go to college, and it was off.
That's part of your story.
Yep.
That's when you went below the line?
Yeah, right below. So this is a time of massive change throughout the world, and particularly in the United States, when we look to see that in the last 13 months, how our habits have changed. And some of those are going to be around for a long, long, long time. And we know that there's a huge number more billionaires that have made. And yes, a lot of people have suffered. But as we come out of this, we're going to go, oh my goodness, look what's happened in the last 13 months. So this is a time where where changes should be continued to be made while we're in that space, because there'll be a time now we don't want to do anything new. We've done everything that we're going to do for the next 5 years. And certainly, when I looked at people that I know that are paying $700 and $1,000 a month, young people, on their student loans,
yes,
it's $12,000 a year.
Yeah.
It's 25 years plus interest of payments. It certainly alters how young people think.
It also puts a lot of stress on them, and I think there's a lot of stress in the. I think personally, I think that teenagers are highly stressed. Certainly, this has made it even more stressful. The only thing I can say is that you're below the line in the misery section, and the only way to look at this is it's going to get better, and we're going to come out of this.
A couple of months ago, somebody asked me, "How you doing?" Usually, I'm asking that.
Yeah.
And I said, "Is bipolar one word or two words?" Well, one day you're up, and the next day you're down. Right? And okay. And we know what happens when you're going to go up. All right. It's going to go like this, and part of it is getting used to this, especially during this time, and it is getting better to where it's not so high and not so low, and to where we can be more even keeled, so we can get more things that are done. I want to thank you for your show. It's very, it's really interesting, and folks, you ought to stay tuned, watch these shows. You can go on Facebook and see your shows there.
Also, we have a YouTube channel,
right,
where they can see all the shows on the YouTube channel. Wanda will be with us in a second. She'll give us that information about the YouTube. And thanks for
my pleasure.
Thanks for the interview.
And I'm going to abbreviate this. Folks, be kind to yourself and to your friends.
Thank you, Michael. We agree with that sentiment very much. Thank you.
Wanda,
so we're going to take just a short second to change chairs and welcome in Wanda, my sidekick.
Oh,
my friend.
It's good to be here. Oh,
you still got your mask on.
I know. Sort of, kind of. I like it as my beard. So
how are you?
That was
Wanda?
nice. Now I have to interject some parts to that conversation.
Sure.
I have a question too.
Sure.
First of all, not all 18-year-olds are lost. Just let me say that. He thinks, and I'm just saying. I know that there's some that know their way.
Being total.
Yes, we do battle on this thing, but that's cool. That's good. We like a conversation. You said something about that we're having a problem getting out of the political aspect of things.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? I'm kind of curious because.
Well, I think that I think part of it is that the political people want to keep us there. Politics is a big business. I think the control and the power that the political world has on us. It's interesting because Coca-Cola. We generally don't get into political discussions on the program. We don't get into bipartisan issues, but it's an interesting change. Coca-Cola is kind of going back from where they were in the position that they took, which was political. And what they're saying is that it's not right for them to get into the political discussion. And so that really is what we're saying. We're saying that the political discussion and political discourse in the country is very hard to deal with because it's actually kind of manufactured at this point. We do not have to have that much political control. In other words, politics should not be controlling us all. We should be controlled by our individual needs and what our individual abilities are and everything that the individual is about, not what the body politic is about. And so that's why I think we've seen this, and what we're actually going through, I think, is anti-disestablishmentarianism, the longest word that I ever heard.
I was going to say, wait a minute.
Anti-disestablishmentarianism.
It's time for Sesame Street with that one.
Where the establishment doesn't want to get disestablished. And so you're seeing that. And what ends up happening is they, in the dying throes of a particular era, that becomes more difficult for them to accept. And so we're going through that right now.
Well, they won't go without a fight, is basically.
They won't go without a fight.
No one really wants to go without
our
a fight.
slogan, Route 664, or 664, the missing piece, PEACE, I think that's really germane. I mean, you're talking about other parts of the world. People are still, there's a lot of people that are still in tribal countries.
Yeah.
There are people that are in religious countries, and there are a lot of people in political countries. We're in the economic world right now in the United States, and we have an advantage over the rest of the world because of our economic well-being. And I think that's what we need to be fostering. And we need to be able to use that to get the era of human kindness really in focus.
Well, that'll be a nice thing.
Yeah.
I put up on our Facebook page, I've been loading up some really great articles that I've been finding on non-political articles, actually, on optimism and how helping your fellow man helps you. It's it's good all around. So it's a win-win situation if we can all
Hopefulness.
encourage one another to help your fellow man. Oh, I see our guest. Hey, come on in. Come on in. We've got all kinds of time today. So let me go fetch
Sure.
Peter, and
Okay, and then I'll,
maybe you can introduce him
can-
for a little bit.
Yeah,
Talk
I
about
can talk
Peter
about
Mendez.
Peter Mendez is a friend and a colleague, and he's been actually has worked with us on this project that we've been working in for the Dow American Network Foundation and also the Social Charity Project. And Peter and I used to do a radio show together not too long ago. But Peter is the CEO and the president and founder of First SOS Staffing, and it's a company that provides primarily for the hospitality industry. And so we're joined now by Peter Mendez. Hi, Peter.
Hello, Les. It's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you very
Yes,
much
it
for the
is.
privilege of.
I'm always glad to be seen. To tell you the truth.
Indeed, any day above ground and so forth.
That's the way it works. I see myself in the mirror. I'm very happy. Yeah.
Good.
So anyway, Peter, how are you?
I am very well, thank you. I'm very pleased that things are opening up here in South Florida, that business is resuming. I think that we're up to about 100% of the level of occupancy that we were experiencing pre-COVID, which was March or so of last year before things actually closed down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a relief. It's been some time.
You're mostly in the hospitality industry, and tell a little bit of what does First SOS Staffing actually do?
Well, we're an outsourced staffing provider. We provide personnel to the hotel, resort, food and beverage industry. So any venue that requires personnel on a generally temporary basis, on a seasonal basis. So we service almost all of the major hotels on the beach, from South Beach up to West Palm. We service probably something to the effect of about 120, 130 different luxury hotels on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
We have a staff in the neighborhood of upwards of, I believe it's 500 or so.
Aren't you always looking, though? Are you still looking for employees? Are you still looking for people who are able to do this work?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
By all means. We currently have 170 open positions that we're unable to fill. It seems as though some people feel that they're making more money staying at home than they are coming to work. I don't know.
That's going to last a little while longer, but I think it's going to eventually come to a conclusion.
Yeah. Well, we certainly need to address that, because we've got a lot of venues that are closing because they can't cover their personnel requirements.
So we were talking before with Michael about Kurt Vonnegut and how stories evolve and what stories are interesting, and storytelling and the story of short stories in your life. So we were talking about the fact that you have a line on the left side of the page, which at the top is ecstasy and at the bottom is misery. And then in the middle of that, the midpoint is a line that's the BE line, which is the beginning and the end. And I was telling the story about the country. Cinderella's a good story because, you have a 7-year-old girl whose mother dies, and she's left to her stepsisters and her stepmother, and she lives in misery, but then she meets a fairy godmother who is constantly helping her get to the midline. And then she goes to the ball and she meets the princess. She's in ecstasy, and then boing, 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 12 o'clock strikes, and she goes back down below the line, but she has a slipper, and she's able to get back above the line. So we all go through those stories in life, below the line, above the line. I know you were above the line for a long time, and then COVID put you down below the line.
Yeah.
And now you're coming back up above the line.
Yeah. For a while there, I thought I was going to have to start doing real work again. Now things are back with a vengeance, and I'm really optimistic about where things are going. I believe there's a lot of opportunity for our country, certainly our state, to move forward and to capitalize in a different way. There's a different way of doing business. There are certainly methods of remaining safe. There are a lot of businesses that may have changed permanently. A lot of people now working from home that would never have contemplated doing that. But that opens up a lot of opportunities that were not there before. A lot of degrees of lenient, of more efficiency, leniency to businesses that did not exist before. And
well, it certainly became became true that companies that have a lot of employees on a regular basis, when they're shocked like that and go through this kind of experience, they may consider more finding a way to handle their employees on a different level. So a staffing company would have a lot to offer in that.
Yeah, and the regard for employees. Employees are now in a position of a lot more power than they were at this, say 15 months ago. One of the things that really impacted me when first I moved down to South Florida from New York City was the lack of compensation or regard for employees that were paid on an hourly basis down here. Everybody says that in New York they're paid at a much higher rate, and that probably is because it's a union state, right, or union city. But it's not uncommon for, say, a housekeeper to be earning $20 an hour in New York, whereas here she's going to be at half that rate typically. And we had a great deal of difficulty to educate our clients to the value of providing a higher rate of pay. Now, certainly, no one. An increased minimum wage is, that's debatable, but most entrepreneurs feel it doesn't benefit either the business and or the employee. But when the market dictates a higher rate of pay, that's an entirely different story. And so now, all of a sudden, we're able to go back to our clients and say, listen, you want to get quality personnel, you need to pay for, you need to give them the incentive to leave their homes and come in and give you the kind of work that you're looking for.
And so your arrangement with the ultimate with the person that uses your service, the entity that uses your services, you're negotiating for the employees that they're going to be utilizing from your firm, from First SOS Staffing. So if you're out there and you're not working and you want to go into the hospitality industry, Peter, how do they reach First SOS Staffing?
www.firstsos.com, and that's the number one ST SOS as in saveourship.com.
You can also go to the ACIB Chamber website, the Aventura Sunny Beach Chamber of Commerce website. Peter is a banner member for in that chamber, in our chamber, and you can see his banner on the website and the front piece of the website. So how are we doing with time?
I can wrap it up whenever you feel.
Okay, Peter. I encourage everybody to consider First SOS Staffing. If you're an employer in the hotel or in any other hospitality industry, you also work at the ballparks, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we work with all of the major stadiums, the Dolphin Stadium, the Marlin Stadium, BB&T. We're breaking out into the airports, the ports, things along those lines.
Good firm to get aligned with. So if you're looking for employment and steady employment with good benefits, give First SOS Staffing a try. Thanks, Peter. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us today on Route 664, the Road to Human Kindness. Thank you, Michael Miller, for the initial interview. Appreciate that time. And thank you, community newspapers, for giving us this studio to use for our program. We'll see you next week. I didn't realize we were on